wanted to hopefully bring a lot of different parts of things that I've been talking about together and hopefully connect a lot of dots and give whoever sees this video maybe some insight into how all this thing we call reality, thing we call consciousness, how it all works. And what is energy? The very substance or stuff that makes up our reality, the stuff itself cannot be directly described or defined. So how can it be said using any form of objective observation anyway that we truly understand what this reality is? It can't really be said because we can't bridge that gap that objective observation creates. Know this: the eyes do not see, the mind perceives. So what that means is we are actually walking within a mental synthesis, a holographic synthesis of all the information that is being passed to us through our senses. The truth is that it is not reality that we perceive, or I'm sorry, it is not reality that we perceive when we utilize objective observation. It is an attempt to describe our particular perception of this reality. So in order to know what is real, and if indeed such a thing as the Creator is real, we must gain knowledge of its being through understanding reality, as opposed to the reality that we currently perceive through the use of our 5 everyday senses. It is not that such a thing as the Creator does not exist. It is that those conceptualizations of who and what that is, most likely anyway, come from institutions that ignore reality to an extent. And both the institution of religion and the institution of science has been and is guilty of this. The spiritual inclination in us, which is our innate desire to know who we are, where we come from, that type of thing, that experience, that push that we feel, is based in reality, because it is based in the reality of what we experience about who and what we are. The cultivation of that push or that drive to know who and what we are is what will lead us to the truth about this reality. So that is what we have to cultivate if we seek to understand what all this is. So what we think of as the institution of religion or the institution of scientific thinking is actually the result of our selfish ego attempting to hold control over where that natural inclination in us desires to carry us in terms of what we experience. But because the spiritual inclination in us is actually the basis for religion, and actually the basis for science, that means that no matter how much the institution of religion, for example, has ignored reality, it still has some basis in what is real. So what we come to think of as religion today is actually an admixture of reality and non-reality, which means that if you are diametrically opposed to all that religion is, you are by definition also a mixture of reality and non-reality. So it is just like the Buddha said, the truth is found in the middle path. Science and religion actually do not oppose each other. Selfish ego comes in to our experience and it creates confusion as to what we believe this reality is. And this video hopefully is going to explain a lot of that stuff, how it is that we perceive, how it is that perception affects what we see to be reality, and how it is that we can overcome the limitations of objective observation in order to truly see and understand what this reality is. And in so doing, know who and what this being is that we call Creator. Spirituality is the science of participation with and in reality. And it is through that science that we have the ability to gain the knowledge that would otherwise be impossible to obtain. Knowledge of the being of the Creator is like knowledge of what love is. You can attempt to describe it, you can attempt to define it, but it is impossible to come to one ultimate definition of it. But if you have shared the experience of it, you understand exactly what is being spoken about, so long as you have had that experience. True knowledge of what this reality is contained within our experience of this reality. Just as the very stuff or the substance, for lack of a better term, that makes up this reality cannot be directly described, it can be experienced, and it must be experienced if we have a desire to know who we are and where we come from. And contained within that experience is the knowledge of what it is and who and what we are. Because you are it. And this is why our identity is such a huge issue. Because we try to define who we are based on what we do, based on external things or whatever, but ultimately we still are wrestling with the fact that we don't know who and what we are ultimately. And that is because who and what we are ultimately cannot be defined. It can be experienced, and that experience is what we have to cultivate in order to come to a greater knowledge and understanding of who and what we are. So, contained within the experience, or our experience of reality, is knowledge. It just hasn't been brought into the lower realms of definition of the intellect yet. However, from the experience of knowing, we draw information. And I'm hopefully going to show this in a way that makes whatever I just said a little bit more easy to understand. Information itself is an attempt to describe what is ultimately indescribable about our experience. But though it is ultimately indescribable, it is infinitely experienceable. And because of this, the knowledge that we have the ability to gain from our experience is infinite. So consider this. There is no quote-unquote objective scientific proof even for the existence of your consciousness itself. However, the only reason that rational scientists even acknowledge the existence of consciousness is because they also share the experience of it, despite not being able to define it. So what is energy? What is the very stuff that makes up our reality? How do we come to knowledge and understanding of what it is if it is not possible to objectively define it?